We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming with the Blk Grrrl Show, and this is a September 18th edition. I'm having a problem remembering the date. Today we have Julian Toe and Cathy, Meyer, Foley, and Peter J. Harris. But before we do that, we're going to do the breaking the table, what I always do before we start the show. This one was kind of inspired because I went to the Tavis Smiley reading, and I got this book, The Death of King, which this book is amazing. I totally, advise you guys to get it. It's amazing. Okay, so the title of Breaking the Table today is called The Road to Hell is Paved with $10.10 an hour jobs and people who think they are radical for asking for $13.75 an hour. Without economic security, civil rights is useless, feminism is useless, and even education is useless. Dr. King is one of my favorite revolutionaries. People often compare President Obama to Dr. King. The vast majority of people who invoke Dr. King's name wouldn't know a revolutionary if she kicked them in the bottom and sideswiped their head. The rest are simply trying to manipulate the public for their own personal gain. The U.S. is the richest country in the world, yet we managed to have 50 million poor people. In the article, How Would Dr. King Have Responded to the Current Crisis of Recession, Unemployment, and Foreclosure from the February 2010 edition of The Nation, it said in February 1968, King announced specific demands: $30 billion for anti-poverty, full employment, guaranteed income, and the annual construction of 500,000 affordable residences. One of the Democratic solutions is high-quality preschool. It sounds good in theory until you notice they forgot to account for the very low pay of the women who do that job. And it's going to get lower with the introduction of corporate America into preschool. The median pay for preschool teachers is $13 an hour, and her assistant makes even less at $9.38 an hour. I know the city of Los Angeles is fighting for $13.75. That's awful. That's still a really, really awful wage. What kind of high-quality program is going to exist when the teacher can't feed her own kids or keep the lights on? What about her retirement? Obama said in the State of the Union, let's do more to help Americans save for retirement. Today, most workers don't have a pension, and Social Security check isn't often enough on its own. That's why I'm going to start the Treasury Department is going to start the MyRA. I don't even know if he believed that was a good idea. At $10.10 an hour, how are we going to save for our own retirement? 40% of Americans make $10 an hour or less. Why not expand Social Security and make it better if it's no longer a true safety net? There is nothing revolutionary about President Obama. Dr. King and Obama have nothing in common, but that is okay. President Obama is not required to be a revolutionary, but he is supposed to be critiqued. He should be asked the tough questions by all the press. He should be questioned by the black press. African American unemployment is at 11.4%, and when you compare other facts in the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, there are even bigger problems. White men labor participation rate is 72.3%. Black men labor participation rate is 65.6%. The number of African Americans not in the labor force in November 2013 was 12,053,000, and in December 2013 it had risen to 12,168,000. It is very clear that there was one inequality that President Obama has forgotten to address. President Obama's solution to income inequality is to appeal to corporate America's conscience. He said this to an enthusiastic applause. Profitable corporations like Costco see higher wages as a smart way to boost productivity and to reduce turnover. Modern-day Democrats look an awful lot like Republicans did in the 1970s. The path of if the wealthy want to share is a dangerous one. The idea that we can't say we want more crumbs because Fox News might use it as a soundbite has gotten us nowhere. 95% of all U.S. income gains have gone to the top 1%. According to the article, Income Inequality, Does a Wider Gap Between Rich and Poor Threaten Capitalism? In the Christian Science Monitor. I'm not concerned what the Tea Party thinks. They think global warming is imaginary, but it's time that the left has a real conversation about the economy with real solutions, not just hypothetical ones that end in Sweden is great and I'm moving to Canada. We need to finish the work that Dr. King started. Dr. King stated in his speech, Crisis in America Cities, presented to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia on August 15, 1967, I propose a national agency be established to immediately give employment to everyone needing it. Training should be done on the job, not separated from it, often without any guarantee of employment to which to use that training. And right now, we have a lot of job training programs that lead to no jobs. Dr. King saw the writing on the wall which stopgap nonprofits and piecemeal solutions on the war on poverty presented. He saw this country was trying to break its social contract, a contract that Franklin Roosevelt made with the U.S. in the 1930s, a contract that brought the New Deal and the Work Project Administration, a social contract that brought U.S. unemployment down to 2%. The U.S. should have that again. We need a guaranteed income for everyone, a national employment project. Corporate America will not share. Even corporate America that ends in a .com and serves vegan lunch will not share. As there is always more misery at the lower end than humanity at the top. Everything has been given away before it was received, like water on parched soil, said Victor Hugo's in Les Miserables. The market left to its own devices is cruel, and the U.S. isn't a market, it's a country. Dr. King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. His last speech was to be given on April 7th. The title was, Why America May Be Going to Hell. If we don't fix this country, we may get the answer. And that was Breaking the Table. So thank you so much for that. This is Tika Lark Fleming with the Blk Grrrl Show. Right now, we are going to actually speak to Julian Toe. And since he is a long-time journalist, it'd be great to kind of like segue into that. So hello, Julian. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, that's great. So Julian is founder of LABs, which is like a hyper local ethnic media kind of a hodgepodge of lots of media throughout Southern California. So can you tell us a little bit about LABs?
Sure. LABs was conceived and created under the umbrella of New American Media back in 2008. Mm-hmm. But since 2012, LAB has become an independent network of media. And what it is a network of many communities, news organizations based in LA. And we are now on the verge of expanding to include more other media in Southern California.
Okay. And why do you think ethnic media is important?
Ethnic media is so important is that in essence it has a social missions. There is a social missions to raise the issues, the interests and the concern from the communities. It's so difficult for mainstream media to do that for every different ethnic communities, and so they created this platform as a way of connecting to the communities here in the U.S., to the homeland, at the same time bringing out a lot of issues that concerning their community specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that's so great about ethnic media is that, whether it's the Black press, the Latino press, the Asian press, I think a lot of times with the mainstream or the white media, it was kind of like PR to maybe sell property or to that. But I think that the ethnic media has always kind of informed the populations like what was going on. We really, and I kind of hope that we can keep that trend. I mean, what do you think the future of ethnic media is in regards to journalism? I mean, all the mainstream media has just become PR. So,
well, it's interesting that with the emergence of the internet and digital media, mm-hmm. About 4 or 5 years ago, the buzzwords were hyper-local medias. And then when I heard that, I said, well, that has been the model of ethnic media since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's about covering the Cambodian community in Long Beach. It's about covering the African American communities in Inglewood. It's about covering the Latino community in South Central and other parts. So all of a sudden, hyperlocal become the thing of the day that you need to drill down to the communities. But the thing is about LA is that when you look at it, LA is actually the majorities who are the minorities.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say you drill down, what does that mean? That means that the LA Times should start having a lot of stories covering about the Filipino, the Chinese community, the Latinos. But of course we won't ever see that. So the future of ethnic media is really interesting. Is that because of the cohesiveness of the communities and the strong connections to the homeland, it will continue to serve that role, and plus being a voice, an advocacy voice for the community. So regardless whether it's the traditional print form or move into the digital form, that mission is still going to be there. With the emergence of many new generations, the language is going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, when they see that the interest and the communities are coming together, these media may change in form, but the mission is still going to be the same.
I think the thing that's really funny because, as you know, I have a small community newspaper. When I started off, I was mainly online, and everyone kept saying, "Well, when are you going to have a real newspaper?" And it's kind of funny in a lot of ethnic communities, the real newspaper is still the print newspaper.
Exactly.
The Chinese Daily is still it's called the Chinese Daily, is still doing pretty well. The only notable exception is the Korean that Korean American newspaper. It's like on the website.
Right.
I really like. I forgot what the name of it is.
A Korean American Journal.
Yeah, Korean American Journal. That's a really slick looking website. But I mean, other than that, obvious exception, a lot of the successful ethnic media is still in print. Do you think that that's going to continue, or do you think it'll move online? I mean, everybody else is moving online except for, because I see, just kind of like, I'm talking a little bit too much, but in my community, I noticed that the LA Times is now they're trying to advertise in our community and try to get people to buy the print edition. I mean, what do you find across the board in regards to that?
Yeah, it's been a try and errors for many ethnic media as well, because before that, it's the core business, it's the print.
Mm-hmm.
When digital media, the internet media become the thing, and,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, they also embrace that and create websites for the media. But over time, what I found out is that the traffic to their website is actually still not comparable to the print.
Mm-hmm.
The audiences still prefer holding newspaper in print and going to the coffee shop and tea houses and read. So they decided that, okay, let's hang on to our media, traditional media, if that what the people want. So if there is a demand for more digital media, it's already ready there. Then they have no problem of making transition. But for now, what they are seeing is that it's still very strong demand for the print media.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, should we be worried? People who are kind of like publishers and run ethnic media, because now, since the LA Times, they see like, it's hard to get an audience, and they're seeing now that the ethnic audience is the audience that they can actually get to, and instead of competing with PR companies that are pretending to be journalists. So they're kind of going, we can go down to we could have like a black newspaper, we could have a Filipino newspaper. I mean, do you think that ethnic media should be worried in regards to us owning our own presses?
There was an attempt by the LA Times a number of years ago
Mm-hmm.
that they saw the writing on the wall, and they wanted to partner with some of the larger ethnic press like the Korea Times and the Chinese Daily and other, that they would bundle their weekend editions with the LA Times magazine and so on, and as a way of making an entry into the different ethnic communities. But over time, it shows that these communities would say that, okay, if I really want the LA Times, I would go there and buy it myself. I don't need to have this bundle.
Yeah.
And so that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for for mainstream media to really break into the ethnic media, they just ask questions. Okay, all you have to do is start really reporting about what's going on in my communities, but you can't. And
they refuse. I mean, I almost think it's like you refuse to. You'd rather go out of business than to cover ethnic communities. I think that's the thing that's just pretty shocking.
Right. So you would like the communities to read the papers, but you're not covering our community. So it's it doesn't make sense. So that kind of arrangement didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a way, I mean, I'm what I'm seeing now in regards to them trying to get into a lot of communities is kind of like having maybe younger people of color in regards to I call it the youth, so they can get kind of like free journalists. Instead of, I almost kind of find it, do you find a trend where instead of hiring journalists of color, they hire like high school students and pay them $1 and kind of go, we have a person of color on staff. And you're like, that, I mean, have you seen that? I mean, or is that something I'm imagining?
That was a challenge in the past because I remember I was on a panel once and we had a discussions about when something happened and they look at the diversity has always been an issue, and of course it's so much easier to look at the LA Times because not too long ago LA Times has the largest newsroom in the cities. But when you look at the diversities of some of the mainstream media like LA Times, it is so limited. So for example, when the riot broke out back in 1984, they had a hard time of getting reporters to come together to really to cover the community. So they have to pick maybe a Korean writer he didn't speak Korean, and then some other people to come in to cover the stories, and after that they decided, okay, we gotta have more diversity, but then that didn't go very well. So basically, it's mainly up to the ethnic medias to cover their own communities, and they do it well, and because they know exactly, because they live and they connected with the communities, and to do a much better job than mainstream media.
No, I mean, I think that's one thing that's just kind of, that's great that the ethnic media, I think they do a great job at covering their communities and kind of, like letting people know what's going on. Again, it has a long history of that. I mean, what do you think in regards to, well, as far as advertising dollars and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I've noticed, like in the African American community, in regards to the ethnic media, I noticed that during I'll use the Obamacare, they did not do many ad buys in the African American newspapers. Instead of kind of using the African American newspapers, they were using nonprofits, they were using churches and all that kind of stuff. And I know that a lot of ethnic media kind of depends on those dollars. Do you see a trend of that maybe happening to other media in regard? Even though, just to let you know that the African Americans had the lowest sign up rate for Obamacare, so that completely failed in regards to not advertising in the newspaper. But do you see them, because the ethnic media is so powerful, like how can I remember that event where they had a big rally in downtown, one of the first ones. It was about immigration, and no one knew about it because if they had advertised it, they had talked about it, but it was in the Spanish media only. So I think that they see the power in that. Do you see that, corporate America or people on the right trying to destroy ethnic media because it is so powerful? I mean, is that something you think we would have to worry about?
On the one hand, we talk about the value of ethnic medias and how effective they have been in terms of providing news information to their own communities and also represent a voice to that communities. But then on the other hand, as you mentioned, when it comes to advertising, this like you flip it over, there is a lot of disparities in that. When you have so many different groups who are being impacted by healthcare issue, impacted by so many political issues, and yet when it comes to information to those communities by way of social messaging, healthcare, warning, advice, and so on, they are not getting the fair share of that. Although many are struggling, and many trying to do the best to provide news information to their own communities. So there is something wrong with that picture. And then on the other hand, there's one tricky thing is that because the so many different ethnic communities can be fragmented, reaching out to different communities, to different messages through different and then being aware of cultural sensitivities. So it is also a challenge. Nevertheless, that should not be an excuse for reaching out to all these communities, because there are ways that you can go around it if you really meant it. So when it comes to advertising a dollar, there is still something wrong with the current system of not really sharing. And it's not just about being fair, but being effective. When you have the information that you need to reach out to the population, hello, who are the Angelino these days? African American, Latino, Asian, so many other groups, but they're not being reached out to.
And I think that I think the great thing that's really great about LAB's your project is that so many times for people of color, when we think diversity, we just think our group and white people, wherever we are and white people. That's the only way we think of diversity. But we're not thinking of, diversity can be African American, Nigerian, Filipino, Mexican American. That could be diverse too. Like, why is that? How can we? I mean, because you kind of in regards to that, you're kind of groundbreaking, because your diversity doesn't mean like, oh, me plus white people. Like, could you actually kind of include everybody?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, how can we get more people to think that way, to stop thinking so, as we call it, black and white?
I think we just have to be more active and be more vocal.
Yeah.
Because we cannot just sit idle and wait for people to come to you. So we are now trying to become more active in reaching out to potential advertisers, and also especially with government agencies who are mandated to have social messaging reaching the intended communities. Now, when it comes to healthcare issues, which communities are the most impacted? Obviously, many ethnic communities, because economically, there is still a big gap there, and so the target audience should be the ethnic communities, but why is it that the ad dollars still go into the mainstream media? So that is something that we really have to talk more about and really put in pressures on the decision makers out there. And
just be, I guess, and also too, I mean, just be vocal, and because I don't think people understand, like, there are certain communities that I mean, the LA Times is not. The LA Times is not reaching at all. There are certain communities that they're not reaching at all, and even like in regards to politics. I mean, it's really important for people to kind of know what's going on in regards to elections and things like that. I mean, there's a multitude of things. I mean, in regards to which there's the elections that are coming up. Oh, and the environment, because of in regards to the fracking and things such as that. There are a lot of things that need to be talked about in the ethnic community that the LA Times is kind of like, oh, that's just going to be something that we talk about on the West Side, or they shape it in a way so that they're like, oh, it's like race specific, and the environment is not race specific. Because I know that you write a lot about the environment and things that,
Right, or even. When they cover that issue, it tends to be from a business angle or from a science angle rather than a human angle. How is it impacting the families who are living in that area?
No, because you write some really good stuff about the environment, and you are a writer yourself, but you're very modest. I could hardly find anything about you. I mean, I found your writing, but I could not find you. You're like undercover. So I mean, are there any other like projects that you're working on other than LABs, or?
One project that we are working on right now is to tackle youth depressions. And youth depression can be caused by family pressure, from economic issues, from domestic abuse. But the thing is that a lot of these things are suffer in silence. And youth should speak out. Youth should have an avenue to speak out so that they can alleviate some of the sufferings, and also a lot of youth don't know that it's not just they alone, but they others are also. So this is one of the projects that we wanted to work on in LA. To talk about that issue and hope, and then by talking about there are actually treatments, and many families actually could be qualified for some of the public services for these mental illness as well.
Okay, so is this something that's going to be written about in LABs, or is this a different project? Or this
it's going to be written by LABs, and we're trying to involve more students.
Okay.
And this is the project spearheaded by New American Media.
Okay.
And LABs is being part of it.
Okay, so will youth be writing on this? Youth will be also writing, because I think that's one thing that's really important is that youth of color, in regards to journalism, that they have role models that are people of color. So when they're covering the community, it's not from a pathological perspective. I think that's so important, and I think that's one thing I really like about LABs. You see the ethnic communities, the various ethnic communities, through their eyes, not through some weird pity lens. And I think that you see a lot when you have people who kind of are not from the community writing about the ethnic community. So, how would, if somebody wanted to, are you guys just taking high school students, college students? What kind of,
We're looking at community college students.
Oh, okay.
And it's better that they write the stories from this perspective, and then once stories are written, they could share that with their peers through social media. Okay. So I think it's a best way promoting the issues and letting the issues known, and oftentimes the youth they either don't know about, and the parents, unfortunately, a lot of parents don't even know that their children are having these problems.
Well, I think too is just when, depending on what community you're from, like my dad, he was from Alabama. He's like, yeah, people are getting lynched. Oh, you're sad. I mean, it's like, so it's kind of like depending on where you're from, your parents are like, oh, you're sad. So it's kind of like, it's kind of good to kind of bring that up, I understand that things happen, but there are some things in regards to mental health, and it does matter, and it is all relative. So
right, that's true, and it can also be a way of connecting between parents and children to talk about these issues, because a lot of time they know it's there, but unless there is an avenue there for them to talk about, and so it's we hope that will work out.
And a safe space that you feel comfortable in, and there are people who kind of like understand what what you're talking about and all that kind of stuff. So if so your website is LABs, right? .com. And
actually, it's a non-profit organization. Okay. So it's .org.
I know. You guys have a Twitter account and
Facebook account.
A Facebook account, and you guys update. Do you guys have any chats or anything like that? Or are you going to be looking at having any chats? No.
We are hoping to have one soon in the future.
Okay, have one soon in the future. That is. That's great, and thank you so much for speaking to me. I mean, is there anything else that you would like to add in regards to people is there any events going on people should know about or anything like that? Or
all I can say is that Tika, you're doing an amazing job.
Oh well, thank you. You're doing an amazing job. I really, I was kind of like stalking you online for about a year. Like, hey, well, not in a bad way. That sounds horrible. But you're doing an amazing job too, and I'm glad that LEBs is like expanding, and I'll be definitely telling people about it and looking at it and kind of like letting people know, like in regards to if you need to know about ethnic media and you need to know a particular group of people are doing, that's an easy way to kind of like portal to find. So right. that's makes it very, very convenient, because you might want to know what your Korean American neighbors are doing, what are your Thai friends from Thailand, what are they doing, what are your Indian American friends doing, because you don't even think about that. And it's like the world is like I said, the world is bigger than just black and white, so it's always good to have that resource. So thank you so much, Julian, for speaking with us. Thank you so much. Okay. So right now we're going to go on a break, and this is Tika Lark-Fleming with the Blk Grrrl Show. So I'll see you in a bit.
to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
It started out like a totally normal day.
I love you.
I mean, I guess I was a little sweaty and I was definitely sore. I thought I had gas. Turns out I was having a heart attack. Heart disease is the #1 killer of American women. So now I take care of myself and tell the other women in my life to do the same. Make it your mission to save your life and the lives of the women you love. Find out more from the American Heart Association at goredforwomen.org.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bey, back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bey Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bey Show, exclusively on latalklive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey y'all, I'm Shaquem Williams, and I'm the host of The Shock Factor here on LA Talk Live. We broadcast to the world every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Live music, live performances. We're just live. Chef Momo, Erica Ash, and once again, your host, Shaquem Williams. So come join us every Friday here at LA Talk Live, the world-leading broadcasting internet radio station. The Shock.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson-Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on latalklive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
I'm daydreaming of my future boyfriend. He's my favorite person and my #1 friend. Every time I get drunk, I try to seduce him, so I can't drink around him. It's becoming a problem.
Hello, this is Tika Lark Fleming, and you're back with the Blk Grrrl Show. Before we have our next guest, I just want to give a few announcements. Just want to remind you guys to go to the Black Women for Wellness annual conference. They're having the Get Smart Before You Get Sexy on September 23rd on Tuesday. They said there's going to be drinks there, but they're still going to, you can still, I don't know. It's going to be great. So you guys should go. And also the DocuPie will be taking place on Sunday, September 21st at 7 p.m. at Electric Lodge. So, September 23rd, Black Women for Wellness, and September 21st, DocuPie Electric Lodge, and I will be speaking there talking about the police state. So, that'll be it. All right. But we have two guests, and I'm so very happy to have them. We have Cathy Meyer Foley.
Actually, it's Foley Meyer.
Foley? Oh, Foley Meyer. I am so sorry. Foley Meyer and Peter Harris. So thank you guys for coming here. And I'm going to give a little bit of a bio for Cathy. Now I'm afraid to say your name now.
That's okay. It's okay.
She's an artist, a graphic designer. She did the really groundbreaking project Bronzeville. She's the vice president of the of LACE, and we also have Peter Harris, who is a writer, a poet, the author of let's hear her. The Black Man's Guide to Happiness. And they're here because they're going to talk about the great installation that they have at the Pasadena Playhouse for Kiss Me Kate, a new perspective on Kiss Me Kate. It's the installation is on Black theater between 1821 and 1971. So maybe Cathy and Peter, you guys can. Who wants to start to tell me about this great project?
Well, I can start, I guess.
Okay.
First, I want to say thank you so much for having us.
Oh, no, thank you.
I've been following your Morningside Chronicle for a while, so it's really exciting to be here. So the installation, basically it's kind of a combination of original artwork, some of my original artwork, and a historical, some archival material. So it was sort of a challenge because usually when you're doing an installation, it's either purely art or purely history. And I'd done a few before that were, just art or just history, but we had to kind of combine the two. Mm-hmm. And I came up with an idea that we would do a visual timeline starting in 1821. And we were lucky enough to find a lot of, actually Peter had great archival material. Mm-hmm. And so we sorted through it. And I also found this antique radio that this gentleman had converted. So I put together a soundtrack of Cole Porter tunes and Louis Armstrong and just, a lot of classics, the Fisk Jubilee Singers, because they were one of the first elements of the timeline. And so we've got the soundtrack running, and we've got the timeline, and then we've got these archival pieces, and it just creates this really intimate space where people can...
There you go.
Sorry about that, because I wasn't loud enough.
That's okay.
And we've actually had some reaction where people remember some, because we have local productions from the 70s and from the 40s and 50s, and, people have actually... some people were actually, attended some of these productions. So it's been really exciting, kind of bringing back memories for the local audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got from Alden Kimbrough and the Kimbrough Collection here in L.A. We got the artifacts mostly from him and his family. It's, as Cathy likes to say, it's a selective timeline, so it's not comprehensive. So for all our historical friends and our professors out there, we didn't quite nail it year by year, development by development. So we're excited that as part of the work that I'm doing as a community organizer for the Playhouse, I was brought in along with 3 other really fine artists. I was brought in as a writer, as a person who has his own, stride in the community. And our job is to go out like we're doing here. Like I didn't know Cathy before I started this work with her. No,
that's good.
We met through a mutual friend.
Totally mutual. And also I researched her work and found some really powerful pieces, one of which is in the exhibition. Mm-hmm. But this whole initiative at the Playhouse is a part of what's called Consensus Organizing for Theater. It's actually founded and invented by the new associate artistic director. Her name is Seema Sueco. Mm-hmm. And she came up from San Diego, brought up personally by Sheldon Epps, the artistic director. And so this whole outreach, they had been doing exhibitions for sure prior to this one. But the character of it these days is to really key it to the themes of the main stage production. And when Sheldon decided to cast Kiss Me Kate primarily African American, and in this case starring like Wayne Brady, who's blowing it off the roof, and his co-star is a woman named Merle Dandridge, who is I'm crushing on her big time right now. Ooh, she's so good. So this theater piece inspired the work that we're doing in the exhibition. So they're directly connected, and the goal is to immerse theater goers before they get in to see the actual play in this history and in this moment, this flow from 1821 when the African Grove company started in New York all the way out to the ferment of the 60s and 70s.
No, I think that's one thing that's really, we have an artistic history the African Americans have an artistic history. They have a lot of history with art. Even in Los Angeles, there was art and there was creativity. And you know, these are things that people kind of like don't really. You think it's just about struggle, like not saying that art's not struggle. Art is a struggle too, but I think it's really great how Cathy documents in her work how you historically document things, but it's in an artistic fashion, so it makes it kind of like fun and kind of like a happy thing. And I think it's great that you guys are working together and the whole, you know, literary plus visual together. I just like that. It was called Consensus Art.
Consensus Organizing for Theater.
Oh, Consensus Organizing for Theater. I have to remember that term so I can drop it at parties and seem really smart.
Or you can have Seema on the radio and she can break it down to you the whole time.
Yeah. So you guys included things in regards to Los Angeles theater and
definitely we have some archival pieces from the inner city cultural center.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it goes all the way up to the 70s. I'm sorry, I'm all like interrupting you now.
It's okay.
Well, we have this fabulous photograph at Alden Lowndes of the wedding, Dorothy Dandridge's wedding. Right, she's marrying one of the Nicholas brothers, but right in the middle, they're at Hattie McDaniel's house, and to the far left is Gerald Wilson, who just died, the great jazz orchestra leader, and there's also that kind of we got Paul Robeson's the first. Cathy blew up the cover of the program for the first play that brought Paul Robeson into the public eye.
Oh wow!
Which he actually signed. It's got his signature on the.
Because I think I'm pretty sure a lot of the pictures are kind of like cycling through as you guys are talking, just so you guys know, like in the background.
Oh,
like,
okay, well, that's good. Yeah. I gave her some of the photographs.
Yeah. I mean, I saw those, and I'm just it's an exciting thing in regards to how art is political, like Paul Robeson in regards to his political work. I mean, this is even the work that's the Kiss Me Kate. That's how they've been advertising, and I've been seeing it all around and kind of like going, oh, this is it's kind of like a take on Taming the Shrew, but yet it's a take on. It's a take on Kiss Me Kate from a different perspective. And what time period is it taking place?
In the late 40s, 1948.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the inspirational thing is that, this is something Sheldon Epps has done research on, and he's always wanted to cast it this way, he said to me. And it's exciting because it's very subtly done. He doesn't change the songs. It's not a gospel play. It's not converted into a Tyler Perry production.
Oh, good.
But I mean, you can feel the power just in the overture. The music's subtle. The voicings are different. It really does honor the African American sort of creative sensibility. First and foremost, because everybody is bad on stage. There's this kind of an excellence that you just can't avoid, which is certainly what kept people like Robeson and Hattie and everybody else in the world, because they were first and foremost, they were super talented. They weren't just political folks as they were, but they were really good at what they did, and they did work. They showed up. They hit their marks. So they were real pros, and I think that's also important to make sure we put on the table.
So does it take place in Harlem or on Central?
Well, the play itself is sort of set on the road, and literally, Kiss Me Kate takes place in Baltimore.
Okay.
So there's a lot of Baltimore jokes. I'm from D.C., so I'm like, don't hurt Baltimore. But it's also it's supposed to sort of symbolize the traveling troops of African American theater companies who went around. Up and down the East Coast, they had, and especially during the 30s, during the WPA era, they had black theater companies in L.A. and up and down coast, Seattle, and in the Midwest and Chicago. So it's supposed to sort of be set where it is in the play as written, but it's also supposed to symbolize all over the country.
And so then is that kind of how you guys were inspired to do the installation in regards to you're kind of showing the, all over the country and kind of like traveling? I mean, is that kind of like part of the inspiration?
Yeah, definitely. In addition to LA, we also there's a great photograph of a black Macbeth that I think, where was that? Was that also?
That's
that was
in New York.
That's in New York,
yeah, that's
on the East
great,
Coast.
30s.
But our timeline starts out with the Fisk Jubilee Singers, and we've got recordings of them, in Europe, and and from there it goes to the West Coast, the East Coast, and back. We've got the Inner City Cultural Center did a production with the Negro Ensemble Company in New York of To Be Young, Gifted in Black, but they did it here, so we've got photographs from that.
No, I'm excited for other people to see this great installation and just to kind of like, because of the play and the installation, and I like how they're doing this combination. I mean, are they going to be doing are they going to be doing readings with it, or are they going to be doing talks? Or
there are other events,
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about this consensus organizing initiative, and it is something that is supported by the artistic director, Sheldon Epps, Elizabeth, the executive director. This is a leadership supported initiative. But yeah, we've done events. We're doing something on the 24th with Janice Littlejohn. She's producing a film called But Can She Play? It's about women in jazz. And so as part of that night, there'll be a short concert out front by some young jazz players. As a writer, I was asked to consider bringing folks who are supportive of my book, The Black Man of Happiness. And we had an event August 30th where we brought folks into the library, and we talked a little bit about Freedom Summer back in '64 in Mississippi. And we read from the book and played freedom songs. So the whole notion behind the initiative is to go out into the community and connect sort of equal to equals. And certainly the self-interest of the theater is to generate ticket sales without any hesitation, but also to encourage folks like us who are out here doing our work our self-interest is to get our work exposed. When we connect with Alden Kimbrough, his self-interest is to get his exhibitions, out in the world, his artifacts, and that's what this does. It'll be up the whole run into early mid-October. So the goal is to find, as Seema likes to say, where self-interest surface. She can get to singing on it. I can't really sing on it. I just talk about where we're trying to build audiences that reflect L.A. and the Southern California region. Because, in fact, the Pasadena Playhouse is actually the state theater of California.
I did not know that. Well, I think I think it's very important for us to support theater. In Los Angeles, and also people always say things like in regards to African American representation on TV and movies, and I'm just kind of like, we have all these playhouses, we can do our own plays, and we can support those plays, and they're actually stimulating your mind. And we also have the internet. It's kind of like this world is so big and so open. And we're still kind of like stuck on this one way of thinking that there's one way of portraying us, or there's only one medium that we can present our art on. And I think theater is a much more, that's just me. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't be like, I hate TV and I hate movies, but I kind of do.
It's your show.
No, but that's why I have I have theater and play people on it.
Nice.
Before we run out of time, because actually we have a little bit of time. But I want to ask Cathy, and then I'm going to ask you. I want to ask Cathy a little bit about Project Bronzeville, and just tell me a little bit about it, and I'll ask you some questions.
Sure. Well, actually, it was a multidisciplinary project that I did last year with the Roby Theater Company, with LA Art Corps. And it was about the time when African Americans lived in Little Tokyo during the Japanese internment. And Little Tokyo became known as Bronzeville. So we had an exhibition of my artwork. We also had a run of the play Bronzeville at LATC. We did a symposium with Dr. Christopher Jimenez West and Dr. Hilary Jenks and Dr. Anthony Macias. And then we also had a concert at the Blue Whale Jazz Club with the music and arrangements by Miguel Atwood Ferguson. And it all took place in June and July of last year. But it took about 3 years for me to put it together.
I mean, is it gonna be going somewhere else? It's gotta be. I feel like you could do that again. Like, can you do it again?
I could probably do it again, and we may do it again in a couple of years, because it was received really well and everybody loved working on it.
Take it to New York or something, right? You could do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the most interesting parts was doing the research, because I basically created the project because I became obsessed with the period because I knew so little about it. But whenever I would walk around Little Tokyo, I would always wonder if Black people had ever lived there. And then when I found out, sort of organically that they had, I thought, and then I started making art about it. And it just sort of took off from there.
I mean, it's tragic that so many beautiful things came from that horrible incident in Los Angeles. I'm a fourth generation Angelino, so my mother was, my mom kind of, she was born like in 1949, so she missed that. Right. But she knew people who are Japanese American who experienced that, and imagine being taken from your family and all. And I mean, that's just the horror. But through that, it's strange because the African American community in Los Angeles and the Japanese American community actually have a bond that people don't really realize because of that. And
true.
People kind of like, well, I don't understand that. I'm like, my mom she grew up with a lot of Japanese Americans, and she had friends because they lived next to each other, and because of that experience, and it's still there. If you're LA native, and I think people don't, realize that.
Yeah, there were actually Japanese families living in Leimert Park.
Yeah.
And I met a woman when I was doing my research she was African American, but she and her family had held on to the possessions of their Japanese neighbors while they were in internment camps so that nothing would happen to them. And she referred to this woman as her Japanese sister. And when they were released from camp, they got all of their possessions back, but the family decided actually to return to Japan. And the African American family actually visited them there, but she said she lost touch over the years. And she said, it's been so long since I've thought about my Japanese sister, as she called her. And I thought, there are so many stories like that out there. Let's try to make some art about it and see what happens.
That would be a great project. Maybe, hopefully maybe that actually sparked her, and you could be like, yeah, I was on this show, and people are said I could be like in a book.
I could do that.
I mean, but I'm just saying that was an amazing project, and thank you for doing that. And
Sure.
I'm looking forward to other work that you're doing, because you're an amazing artist.
Well, it kind of also grew out of, I started doing exhibitions in relation to the plays that were going up at the Roby, because the artistic director thought that they should have some context. So we would do, when the play Camp Logan went up, we did a lobby exhibition for that. And I think there was another play I did one for, and I did one for Project Bronzeville as well. So I kind of got in the habit of thinking of history in a way, relating it to an art piece, but also picking out certain things that people could kind of have a way into the piece as a whole. So, yeah.
You make it very approachable. So it's really great. So no, thank you. And I also want to talk about Peter, because I keep seeing Peter everywhere.
He is everywhere.
He's everywhere. Well, my other career is, Rebel Poet. I host a lot of poetry readings, but I've seen Peter around for a very long time before I got thrown out the poetry community. But I know that you have this book, The Black Man of Happiness. I actually have a copy of this book. I just didn't bring it because I was in a hurry today, but I have a copy. But I stole yours for right now. Can you tell us a little bit about The Black Man of Happiness book, Peter?
It's just a project. It represents my desire to ask a simple question: What is a happy black man? And listen, really, I'm interested in the range of answers. I don't have any particular answer that I think goes beyond my own, definition. I think, though, that the unleashing of these kinds of answers, I feel like they sort of change the molecular structure of a given situation. And I'm really interested right now in getting into what I call the inner voice of African American men. Just really find out what goes on inside when they're not on the camera, not entertaining, but really are talking, honestly and ethically with themselves, with their loved ones, with their boys, their homeboys, with their friends, their homies from back in the day. They're, when they're really with someone they love, what do they say to the people in their lives? And I frankly am old enough now to assert and theorize that is a territory that we frankly haven't walked much in public in our sojourn through African American manhood. Nobody certainly asked me about my joy and my happiness and why I want to be on the planet and what I have to offer. And I think it's something that's well overdue. And I want to hear us talk more about our kind of deepest motivations rather than what we're against all the time. And I'm certainly against injustice. I'm certainly against folk getting murdered in the streets or murdered in their bedrooms, for that matter. But I think that there's a wholeness that's sort of missing for me in the discourse, and I'd like to think that, sort of putting on the table this question: what makes us happy, and what would it mean to the community if more black people, but more black men in particular, were joyful and finding the language of their joy.
No, you had this great story, I think, about a little boy. I forgot what it was. It was at something about a little boy and about what to be happy, and you explained something. I can't remember what it was, so now you're probably like, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm not sure the exact story. I can tell you a quick one. Okay. I'll tell you, it actually connects with how Cathy and I met. Mm-hmm. I had been referred to a guy. His name is Dr. Christopher Jimenez E. West. Mm-hmm. He's an African-American dude. Took his spouse's Chicana, his spouse's Latino name or mm-hmm. Hispanic name, and she took his, and so that's where we get this long mouthful of a thing. But it was researching him that I found Cathy's work, because they worked together on the Bronzeville thing. Mm-hmm. Well, the other day I went because he's going to speak on the 23rd at Pasadena Playhouse after the performance of Kiss Me Kate. Okay. So I go over to PCC where he teaches. And I'm sitting in the classroom, and I'm this old gray-haired dude, and folks are like saying, well, who are you? What are you doing in here? And one of them was this little brother who was just cold phasing out. Yeah. And we started talking, and before I knew it, we were sort of talking throughout the day. I don't know what'll happen, but Chris told me that the guy was totally zoned out, but was engaged when we were in there talking. So we'll see. We'll see.
No, yeah, that's I think it's an important work, and I mean, are there any other dates that you're going to be doing any readings in regards to this book, or
nothing scheduled right now? Working on some small things. Certainly welcome. You calling me up. Let's do an interview in your newspaper or whatever. I'm game for all of that. You can sponsor something as far as I'm concerned. But right now we're just kind of combining all of this stuff, and the hats I wear now are all about the arts, the power of the arts, the power of creativity, the power of joy. That's so whether I'm getting paid at from $20 when you buy my book at www.blackmanofhappiness.com/shop, or the Playhouse. I'm all about the power and beauty, the power of beauty. Exploring the power of creativity and imagination.
And when is how long does Kiss Me Kate run?
Yeah, it goes to October 12th. October 12th. And there's if it sells, and they have a potential of an extension to the 19th, but it's scheduled to the 12th now.
Okay, and they can just go to Pasadena Playhouse in order to buy the tickets.
Right.
And if they get tickets, they can see the installation. It all comes together. So it's a package deal.
Correct.
It is a package.
And if they're interested in getting a group together, which will get them a discount on the ticket, they can just contact me at Peter. Just call me at 323-385-3536.
Because I think it would be great for a school, like a
Absolutely.
school field trip or whatever.
Absolutely.
I mean, that would really work. You guys should really kind of like let them know about that, because I think that would be. I would love that. The one field trip I used to hate was the Natural History Museum, but now it's really cool now.
That place is beautiful.
Yeah, it's but I'm telling you, if you grew up in LA, that place was. It's the reason why it's beautiful because it was really horrible. You're like, oh really? We have to come here again? Yeah. That's why I had to add alcohol to that place, because it really was not fun at all. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
That is going to be it for the Blk Grrrl Show. Let me give you some announcements again. Black Women for Wellness, September 23rd, Tuesday at California Endowment. They're talking about how to get smart before you get sexy. Do the hashtag BLK GRRRL. If you shout out to me on Twitter, then I'll let you know more information if Black Women for Wellness is too hard for you to look up, but I'm pretty sure you can. Also, on September 21st, Docupy, the film festival, I'll be talking about the police state, with Jessica Ferris of ACLU and Dan Factor, the defense attorney, at 7 o'clock. So next week we're going to have Pam Ward, which will be exciting. Yes, so I found her at a poetry reading. It was actually a Black Women for Wellness event. I wasn't paying attention. I was like, whoa.
She's a great graphic artist.
Yeah. She's also a great graphic artist. So thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Julian. Thank you,
Davis.
Richard Carr, my engineer. This is Tika Lark Fleming with the Black Grrrl Show. And thank you so much for tuning in every Thursday at 7 p.m. You can find me on Twitter at hashtag BLKGRRL or at Black Grrrl Show. And you can find me online. I'm Tika Lark Fleming. I'm very easy to find. All right. You guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Lightning Hopkins. I'm talking about Howard Wolf. I'm talking about Albert King. Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry. When I was sweet 16. And that's why they say I'm different. That's why you think I'm strange. I'm talking about T-Bone Walker. I'm talking about Muddy Waters. I'm talking about Lead Belly, Sonny Terry, Brownie Boogie, Son House, and Freddie Kane. That's a smear. That's a smear. Oh, hey. Oh, Bo Diddley, have you heard her? That's why they say I'm different.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.
She'll shine, you so can't